Hello everyone, this is Melanie from Melanie B's Creative Studio and Supplies, and I just received a package. When I say just received, I mean that my security camera popped up that I was receiving a package from the mail carrier and saw him walking across the porch and put it down, and I was like, I'm not expecting anything because tracking showed this package was still in Atlanta. I went out there and I saw that this is my order from Craftoria. I purchased the paintings in this package myself. This is not a collaboration. I'm not doing this video in affiliation with Craftoria, but the reason I placed an order for these kits was so I could give some answers to the people on my Facebook group who've been asking about this particular company. This company claims to be based in Illinois in the United States, but I did a little investigating after I tried to contact them via email and didn't get any response after about a week and a half. So I went in and looked up their address that is showing on their website, and that address actually goes to a Staples in Illinois. There are a couple of small businesses in that same shopping center, but I never found Craftoria. This company drop ships from China, but I don't mind a company that's based in China or is based somewhere else and drop ships from China if they are upfront about that information. Otherwise, it makes them look like they're being deceptive. So I hope that all makes sense. Part of a legit or scam video for me is really investigating the company and getting a lot of information. I like to contact the company and get background info. And since I haven't been able to speak to someone, it's very hard for me to confirm that information. So maybe once I speak to someone, I will be able to clear this up for us. In the meantime, let's dive into this package. I'm already impressed with what I'm seeing here. And I know that many of my fellow paint by number enthusiasts are going to feel the same way. This company has 3 separate options when you're purchasing a kit. You can choose your kit with 24 paints, 36 paints, or 48 paint colors. I chose 48 for each of mine. And the reason I did that is because a photo has millions of colors, which is why a paint by number never looks like its photo reference, as I've talked about in a video several years ago. That's why our paintings always look like a paint by number and not a photo when we're done. So the less paints we choose, the 24, the less detail we're going to have in the end project. So I went ahead and opted for the 48 paint kits. I not only did it because it would give me more variations and colors, but it also will probably mean there's a lot more detail on these canvases. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of small details. I'm going to tell you, I'm one of those people that wants the best of both worlds with less work, because I just have so little time in my life that I don't want a lot of the extra details on the canvas, but I kind of had to sacrifice that for more paints. Plus, I really love color. So I love all these pretty colors. So I wanted to flip this one over real quick and just look at these colors. I can't get to these right now, but I am going to swatch the paints for each of these kits. Let's talk about the price. The 48 paint color kits were $34.95 a piece, which sounds like a lot. But if you purchase 2 kits, you got one free. And that's what I did here. And I believe that if you made a $69 purchase or more, you got free shipping. So I ended up with free shipping and a free kit. So basically for $70, I got 3 kits plus free shipping. For kits with 48 paints each in foam trays. So you guys may not know, but I am probably the only retailer that sells the foam storage trays for paint by number paint pots. The fact that they've included these is worth the price of admission, in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to do a review on each one of these kits individually. I'm going to pick one. We're going to discuss that canvas and that kit in particular, but I am going to swatch the paints for all 3 kits, and we're going to talk about the swatch on each of those. Okay, so first let's talk about this one. It is just a very unique and different piece. And of all of the creative and uniquely different designs on their website, the ones that were like this really appeal to me. You can see the colors are just so, I don't know, they called my name, obviously. Then I chose this one here. I'm sure you can't imagine why I chose that one. Waves, sunset, of course it's going to have a super tricky palette because that is my life. But that's another reason I wanted to test these particular palettes, because if Craftoria can pass the Melanie B super stringent standards on demon palettes, like the one I'm about to talk about, then they've really done well, in my opinion. And the final one here is this one. And lately, I've been very obsessed with tropical birds. My mom was very much into birds, and she had a massive painting in her sunroom with these kinds of colors and that kind of theme. And I don't know, maybe I'm drawn to these in the last couple of years because of her and her passing in July. So to avoid getting emotional, I'm going to move along and let's open one of these kits. I'm going to pick the most intricate in detail. Let's take a look at the canvas, because the big question is, if you purchase the kit with the most amount of paints, how detailed is the canvas? I'm scared. I'm a little bit scared, y'all. I am at the moment in this video where I really wish I made commissions off of their kits because I'm really impressed so far. Now, I realize I haven't tested the paints, but I'm a little obsessed, and I'm really scared that when I'm done with this video that I'm going back in here and I'm going to make some very bad decisions and impulse purchases for more kits that I do not need and will never have time to paint. But that is what we do. But for some reason, collecting is just as much of a hobby as painting these damn things. All right, sorry. Moving along. The canvas came wrapped on a foam sword. If y'all have ever seen my lightsaber sword wars with my grandson and my husband, you'll understand what that means. But this actually helped protect the kits in transit, which was really important. I know this seems like a simple thing, but if you will notice, when you get kits that don't have the foam the foam tube in the center, they're kind of squished and bent a little bit, and you might have a little bit more of a difficult time getting them to roll out without creases. This helped keep these kits firmly rolled, and so it's in perfect shape. Now, you'll also notice there is a reference guide. Hallelujah. So I did pick the toucan to review in this part because it does have some little teeny weeny whiny little numbers down in here. Some of these numbers are impossible to see because they are so very small. So I would recommend that before you start painting the sections, and let's take a look at the canvas, that are very small, like right down in here, I would suggest you take a photo of that so that you can zoom in on it or use your magnifier or whatever, because the reference guide is printed small enough to where some of those numbers, even with a magnifier, are not going to be printed legibly for you to read, even if they're enlarged, if that makes sense. But the good news is this canvas doesn't have such teeny weeny whiny little cells that it is overwhelming. I'm so excited because with all of these colors, doesn't look like what I was expecting as far as 900,000 cell openings. So yippee. You'll also notice it is a shaded canvas. And that just means, for those of you who are new here, that the background areas are shaded so that it just kind of helps you find the number you're looking for. And for example, number 1 is this kind of creamy color. And so I can say, oh, there's another number 1. There's another number 1, because they're all kind of shaded the same color. It's just a handy little extra. The texture of the canvas is nice. It's not super thick. I don't think it would be a problem for stretching. It doesn't seem to have any wrinkles, no issues. If you were going to tape mount this, if you were going to dry mount this on an adhesive foam board, which is what I tend to do most of the time, I will, as I always do, apply clear gesso to this canvas and all of the other canvases that I ever paint. I use Liquitex, and this does have kind of a toothy feel to it, but even the ones that seem to have a toothy feel, I end up having to clear gesso them anyway. I don't know if this was primed with white gesso first, but being primed with white gesso has nothing to do with whether your canvas needs prep with clear gesso. Not the same thing. Another video, another time. I've actually talked about that in my clear gesso videos. Okay, let's move on to the other contents of the kit. And now we come to my favorite part, the yummy, delicious, freaking fracking palette. Seriously, you guys, do you see why I chose this palette? And do you see why I chose this palette in 48 colors? But if you will look closely, you will see that they didn't just give me 48 colors. I have 55. What? What? Now, it appears that the stickers, I only have 50, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I have 55 paints, and I paid for 48. So I'm gonna not complain about not having 5 extra stickers. They could be over in my stuff. Like, I'm okay with that. I'm flabbergasted. Is that still a word that's used? Because that's what I am. None of these appear to be duplicates. You may be asking yourself, why are there so many similar colors? Because these are tone on tony colors. That is the purpose of going to a 48 color palette, because you're not having to blend as much or at all, because you are filling in. For example, here's our handy dandy photo reference. It's a little guy, but I don't care, because I save a big image in my phone or my iPad. On his beak, there are all these yellows and oranges. If I have this many variations of yellows and oranges and yellow oranges, that's less blending I have to do when I get to this part. Same with these flowers. The more shades and tints I have of a hue, of a color, the less blending I'll have to do if I want to blend. You guys, blending is an optional thing. I hope you know that. You don't ever have to blend any of your paint by number projects, okay? I show you how as an option. Just want to throw that out there. I'm so happy that I spent that little extra money to get the 48 color palettes. Oh my gosh. I'm thrilled. They actually gave me 2 sets of paintbrushes for this kit, and they're not the blue plastic ones. They're a little bit of an upgrade by having the wooden handle. So you know what I'm going to be doing next. I'm going to sit here for the next 48 hours. It probably will take me a while, because when I first open a paint pot, I like to make sure it's been stirred from the bottom to make sure that it's giving me the best opacity that it can possibly give me. And I have 55 paints in this particular kit. I'm going to have at least 48 paints in the other 2 kits. So that's a lot of paints to swatch. I just recently designed a new Melanie B's digital swatch guide with 48 paints on each guide. So at least I have that now that I can swatch all of one kit on it. If the others only have 48, I'll let you know the answer to that question when I come back with the swatches painted. So that is going to be the next and most important test to me, is how these colors are going to do in the swatch test, because these bad boys here are going to be a challenge. So I'll be right back in YouTube time with 3 finished swatch guides and my opinion on the quality of this paint. I did use my new numbered swatch with 48 paint colors, and then I used my unnumbered swatch and I cut one of them down to a little bit smaller size so I could be frugal. And so we're going to take a closer look. This is the Reflecting Tranquility palette, and look at that. It's so beautiful. And the containers that I use, I will be talking about in an upcoming updated 2024 tips and tricks and tools video. But for now, I will put a link in the description for the containers that I do use for storing my paint by number kits. These sets actually take 2 of these, but I do love these. I do use foam trays all the time when I'm painting my kits. And the ones that came with these kits were a little flimsy, and I had cut them in half, but they were still kind of, they're not, I don't know, they're not as thick as the ones I carry in my shop. And so they were bending and whatever. And when I tried to put them back in the envelopes, it was just a pain in the butt. So I went ahead and put them in my boxes. I also use a labeler, which I'm also going to discuss in that video that I'm going to be coming up with. But that's another video for another day. Let's just talk about the paints and how they swatched. First of all, hello rainbow goodness. Does this palette not look like a big bag of Skittles or jelly beans? And there are some very neutral muted colors. So like 5 or 6, you know, they're like, okay, there's only a few. This is just a beautiful, beautiful palette. Of course, we have our usual suspects being the typical pains in the arses. So I will point those out. Otherwise, these paints were very opaque, and I will have some trouble with all of the yellows and the oranges here. I did underline the ones that were going to be a little troublesome. 1 through 9. 10 was tiny bit semi-opaque. 12 was semi-opaque. I mean, when I say semi-opaque, that means it borders on opaque. That means if I have clear gesso on my canvas, I may not have any issues at all. Same with 13, it was semi-opaque, so very close to being opaque. 15, same thing. That one may end up needing 2 layers. 16, same thing, it's semi-opaque. Now 24 was a gorgeous red, covered beautifully, same with 20, but 25 was streaky, and so it was, I'm not sure about that one. I could easily replace all of these with my perfect paints, which is probably what I'll do, and because that is a lot of paints to use with the 3 shades of gray and to prime first. So for me, because all of these colors are in my Charleston Sunset kit, or can be mixed really quickly from my Charleston Sunset collection, I will probably just replace all these paints when it comes time to doing those. But the rest of these, wow, wow, wow. They are just absolutely gorgeous and very opaque. As far as consistency, it just depended on which paint I opened. They were all very creamy. Some were a little thicker than others. So this one is somewhere in the creamy to thick category, but these are heavy body paints. So you can expect a heavy body consistency, which is a high viscosity type of paint. All right, so let's move on to the next kit. Look at the yummy palette. Oh my gosh. Okay, so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This one's called Harmony of the Ocean. You can see that it has all of those demon tricky colors that I've talked about. However, when I swatched these paints, I was very impressed and shocked that I did not have as many transparent paints as I thought I would have. Most of these were opaque. And here are my other few. This kit had 51. And again, I paid for kits with 48. So I was very happy to see that they had more than 48. So all of those right there were opaque. Like, I'm not even sure why I marked some of these, because even in the light in here, it's very hard for me to see the little paint pot line under these paints. This is an inkjet printable canvas that I use for my swatch guides to get the most accurate representation when I swatch my paints. And it is ungessoed because I want to see how these paints are going to be on an ungessoed surface. Now that I'm looking at them in the light, I mean, I'm really struggling to see the line on any of these right here. So these are so close to being opaque, and I feel like once there's clear gesso on my canvas, these may not give me a problem at all. Number 6 is a semi-transparent. That's a semi-opaque. This one is somewhere in between. And that one, that's a semi-opaque. Semi-opaque. And again, these are, like I said earlier, the usual suspects, the ones you expect to see having transparency issues. Now, the only two here, and these are very similar colors, is 26 and 27. These are both very transparent. But thankfully, again, my Charleston Sunset Perfect Paint collection has these colors in them or something similar. So I'm just going to replace all of those colors that may or may not have transparency issues with my Charleston Sunset paints. And I have no issues with that at all. But out of 51 paints, to only have 5 or 6 that may give me problems, I'm okay with that. Like, that is really impressive. So let's move to the final kit. Do you guys happen to see a recurring theme in the color palettes here? Oh my gosh. Yeah, me neither. All right, so this one's called Intricate Networks, and it is this really fun, funky little pattern type of paint by number, which I just thought would be fun. I don't know, I love it. It's very different and unique. And this one I feel like could have definitely been a 36 color palette, because these oranges are all so similar, and so many of these blues are. Lots of these colors could have been eliminated, and a 24 color palette could definitely be an option for this particular painting and all of the ones that are similar to this. Very opaque on those right there. This kit ended up having 50 colors, but they did include 2 of number 43 and 2 of number 47 in this particular kit. So I ended up with 52 different paint pots. Now, as far as transparency issues for this one, because I have so many oranges, I accidentally skipped one of these colors here and ended up having to wipe it off and making a mess and all. But the yellows were very tricky. Number 1 is definitely transparent, and 2 and 3, 4, 5 and 7 were semi-opaque, somewhere semi-transparent to semi-opaque. 9 is somewhere like semi-opaque. These all seem fine, and that was it. So I say that, but again, for me, I will pull out my Charleston Sunset paint collection. So I have no issues, replacing those paints if I need to. If you have the 3 Shades of Gray Road Trip collection or the original 3 Shades of Gray, you could easily prime that canvas, put down those colors, and you would be fine. No problem at all. Okay, so let's look at the canvases for these really quickly, just to see how much detail we have for these 2 extra kits. The Harmony of the Ocean, again, it doesn't look like there's such tiny little openings that it's going to take me 100,000 years. Now, I do have well over, I don't even have an idea of how many kits I have. Probably over 200 paint by number kits. So people will say, oh, why don't you ever show start to finish paintings? I paint for myself. I don't paint for videos because I have to do it for my own art therapy. So that's why you don't see a lot of start to finish videos. But when I do paint, I want to paint my number that's going to have a lot of detail, but at the same time, I don't want to paint my number that's got so many tiny little spaces that it's going to take me 60 hours to complete one, if that makes sense. So I'm glad to see there aren't so many little tiny spaces. Now there are some in here, you know, that are very small. So you will need a magnifier, or the magnifying glasses that I have discussed in the past with the lights. Those are really nice to have. Even if you do not need reading glasses, those are wonderful. They have interchangeable lenses. They have lights on them, and it's like wearing glasses, and you can just change out the lens that you're wearing so that if you do need reading glasses, it's helpful. But if you don't need reading glasses, it just magnifies what you're looking at and provides light at the same time. And I'll see if I can add a link in the description. So this is the intricate networks. Yeah, definitely you could do the 24 color kit on this one. The only tiny little details on this are the lines here that are almost like little shadows next to some of the colors. So like here, it's this tiny little area next to some of the bigger colors. So 31, and right up against it, it looks like a 26 or 28. I can't see it from back here, but yes. So I think that that could definitely be left out, because this is one of those kits that doesn't need shading or shadows to add extra depth or dimension. In fact, when I paint this one eventually, I may not even add that extra little detail. If it is supposed to be rounded, then I will. But if this is supposed to be a flat geometric, you know, type of image, then there's no need for those highlights and things. It just depends. So I'm going to look at the original photo and make that determination when I go to paint this. Those little tiny areas are only important if there's shadows or highlights in the original image. Well, I think it's safe to say that this company is not a scam and that it is safe to order from Craftoria. I will include the link in the description below for this website, for the 3 kits that I've brought to you today, and for any of the products that I've discussed, including the swatch guide, the canvas that I printed on, these boxes, the labels, all the things that, if I can remember, all the little things that I've mentioned. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see more like this, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. By liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, you help other people who are paint-by-number enthusiasts find my content when they're looking for information on this hobby. I always appreciate your support, and thank you as always for watching. I will see you back soon.